In this video, I'll show you how the Figaf tool can help you automate your PI to PO migration from either a dual stack to a single stack system, and how it's able to handle this with automation, testing, and configuration, so it's a lot easier to migrate a full landscape. So this is our beta release, so there's some things that's not optimal yet, but we are working on improving, and it will be better when we get to the real release. So the challenge is that a lot of customers still need to migrate, and migration is really a labor-intensive process. There's a lot of things that goes into this, and if you can automate it, it really makes sense to do that. There was a survey out, and I think about half of the participants was on 7.5 or maybe even less, and the rest was using older releases. So that means that a lot of customers need to migrate for being able to support systems, because everything other than 7.5 will run out of maintenance in 2020, so in 16 months. But other than that, you need to migrate, so you're keeping systems up to date and making sure that they're being processed correctly. So what's the reason why you want to do something automated in this process? Because SAP does come with a small migration tool that can help you migrate parts of the solution, but what we want to do is actually give you a much better understanding of what you're doing, give you more control on what are the elements, being sure that you're transporting them directly into your landscape. We want to be able to speed up the migration so you can lower the cost of it. We want to create this, give you an understanding on how far you are in the current project, and then we want to clean up so you do not get all your dirty things migrated. So if someone has been doing some development that has never been migrated, there's no reason to migrate these things. And then it's about giving the project some risk, or saving the project from risk and giving it some more predictability about what you're doing. And then obviously save costs, because it's going to be a lot easier for developers to do, so they can process each integration a lot faster. So here's how it works. So we have a system that looks like this. We have an old system like this. This is a 731 system. In our case, it's called C31 and P31. And then we have our new landscape on a 7.5 system that we want to migrate in. So we're creating, so in the Figaf tool, we have set up these three landscapes: the old system, the new system, and then a migration path where we want to do our migrations from. So for each interface that you decide to add, we have two separate processes. The first is about doing the migration. This is about fetching test data, and we come from as a testing application. And with that, we have a lot of information about testing, and testing is really important. So that's why we'll create test data based on your current productive data, run them in the test on the development system of your QA environment, and then we know we have valid information. Then we will copy your repository objects, we will copy configuration objects, migrate the ICO, and then we will also be able to, so then now we have done our migration, then we will also copy all the rest of the system configuration. So for each landscape, we want to be able to specify that the communication channel in here looks like the communication channel in here. So the QA productive path should be different. And then once you have done that, we will go into the development phase, and this will be like any other development process that you're doing in here. And here we have the option to test your development on QA or on the new system. You want to be able to create transport, you can approve them, you can configure it in QA, run test in QA, and configure in production. So that's that's a process that we are enabling you to develop. And so the way it works is for repository, Figaf will handle all the transports. It will export the content into a file, keep that file so you don't need to do anything with it. And once it's ready, it will import it into the relevant system. And it is also able to do that in the new landscape. For directory objects, we are also using the Figaf tool to handle this. We're using the directory API to create and copy channels, move icons, and at a later stage also create iflows, and then we want to transport it with the directory API. So the Figaf tool will handle transport, handles translation between different systems. So here we have the tool, and what we have done is, before we got started, we have defined some landscapes. We have our old landscape and our new landscape, and in this we have done some settings. We are using the integrated transport, and that is just using the Figaf tool as migration, and then we have a migration of old to new stuff. So we'll create a release, and a release is just a way of grouping these different kind of things in a simple way. So we on. So the default assignee is Daniel. It is a migration, and the source landscape is this. This is our source landscape. This is our target landscape, and then we have our migration landscape that we have defined here. So now we've created a simple new migration project, and with that we can then add some scenarios to this, and it will then select, and if we have test cases already, we can attach them to it, and we will create one ticket per scenario. So let's try this, and here we have the C73, our development system. We will select our dev components. So we are adding these different kind of things to it, and we can then so we can see this is our projects we have. We can look at our tickets, we can see how many is prepared, and if we just go into this one, we can see the details of this. What are the objects involved? Does it have any test cases? And yes, it does. And we can then run these test cases. So we can say run on C03. It will then run on, and we'll get a report that says, hey, this was working or this is not working. So with this, we can actually test that the current setting is okay. So hopefully that will work out and we are satisfied with it. Next up is then we will. So now we have done our preparation of all these tickets, and it's 3 different interfaces we have. So what we can do is we can select them. We can select start transport, and this will then create all the transport needed for this to work. And this will take some time depending on the number of issues and. So now it has created all the transports, and we can then see them here in our transport, that these tickets are now in our transport. We can then go and we can see what transport has been created, and we can see we got the interface thing. We can then go, we can see all the objects involved in this. We can say import, and this will then start importing this specific one. We can also see that there are there are 3 transport links, so one for each software component and one for the directory content. In some of the landscapes, you also may have an approval process that will allow a specific user to actually do improvements of these transports. So it does take a little while importing these and synchronizing and making sure everything is correct. But once that is done, we will then be able to import the other ones, and let me just pause until we get to the directory one. So now we're in the directory one, and one of the things we can see here is that we got this small check mark here, and this enables us actually to see what object has been configured in the specific system. So here we can possibly even change the name of the communication channel. We can see what the URL it's trying to reach, the host. We can see if dev orders is identical and stuff like that. So this gives us a pretty good understanding about what the system would look like in our new development system. And obviously we would have the same for our new transport. So let's just import this. So we'll import it. It will then process in the same way. So here we're just using the directory API and not the import of tpz file. So it'll also take a little while. So we can now see that the transport has been imported, and our migration is then done. So if we go back to our release, we can then see, oh, they're still in transported. We'll then say finish transport, and then we are ready. So now we can obviously test that everything works out on the new system. And next up is we want to do copy all of the transport configuration. So this is getting all communication channels updated across the landscape. So you are specifying these paths whenever you're doing the transports. So this will also take a little while. So here we'll just go in all objects, see if there is configuration. So we can see 24 transports of all communication channels, ICOs, if there are anything on those, will be in this one. And then we can go create our development tickets, and then the development tickets will then handle the process of the configuration in the new environment. So we can go here, we can see what are the objects, and we can see it's now on DI3, our development system, on the new landscape. It will in some cases add test cases, so you can run the test and see how they're working out. And then it's just about creating the transport the same way. So we'll start our transports, create our transport, and then the processing is actually the same because we're using the Figaf tool as the transport mechanism. You could also use CTS Plus. It will be in a little later phase where it will actually be able to do that, and obviously will depend on you approving the CTS transports and stuff like that. But yeah, now we've created development tickets for this. So now we're creating tickets and transport for this environment, and we can then move these along in this development process. And it now has configuration about how the QA, how the productive system looks. So let me just show you that once we get to that. So now a transport has been created. We can go in to the transports. We can check out what are the transports here. If we look at the directory objects, we can then, for instance, see at our HTTP channel. Hopefully here we will then see that this has been configured with the same properties as what the value is in our old system. So here we can see that it's pointing to dev and prod in production. So that makes it pretty easy to set up. You don't need to do that much thing. Currently we're looking into the passwords, so they obviously also need to be migrated in the same way, so you're getting them, because those are one of the biggest challenges that you need to find those. And once you've done that, it's just about going through the transport, importing them again in the new system, and then once you're done, you would then have your release, and you'll be able to see that everything is in production and you are actually happy about this release and migration efforts, and you can test and validate and approve transport in the new landscape. So that is what we've created in this application, enabling you to migrate with ease, being able to see what you have transported and go into the details about this. We can see we will be able to see all changes to ICOs, transports and stuff like that on an ICO level, so we can actually see what has been changed on a specific ICO. One of the other things we also have is a Seaburger migration tool. So if you're using Seaburger, we will be able to convert them to message mapping with just a few clicks. So that also saves you quite a lot of efforts. These tools are not integrated at the moment, maybe in the future. Some of the other things that we are looking at, and depending on customer requirements, will also be, can we actually upgrade the Seaburger adapters to the SAP adapters, the B2B separator to EDI separator, dual stack to single stack, and obviously if there's custom requirements migration, we can also handle those. So how is this licensed? The way we're licensing is you can either buy it as a standalone, just saying we want to migrate 200 ICOs and there will be a price per ICO. Or if you already have or want to use the Figaf DevOps part, there's a smaller fee for this migration effort as a way of ensuring the Figaf tool is handling a lot of all these efforts, but there's still a lot of resources that you're saving that the Figaf tool can handle. So you can go try it out pretty soon on figaf.com/IRT, and we'll show, once you've signed up, you'll also be able to get the first beta release of what we can do here. And there will be some more improvements making it easier to run, handle the migration process. So I hope this has been helpful and something that you want to check out and see how it actually works in your scenario. So go sign up at figaf.com/IRT.